Hello everyone, welcome to Easy English for Everyone. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like and share to receive the latest videos. Now let's study together.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a story about a very exciting place, the Secret Garden. Many people dream of finding a place like this. Why? Because it is full of wonders, hidden treasures, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of magic. Our story is about a young boy named Tom. Tom had curious eyes and an even more curious mind. He lived in a small house with his parents and his sister, Lucy. Behind their house was a garden. But this was not just any garden. This was a special place. One day, Tom noticed something strange. A small door hidden behind the vines. People said the garden held many secrets, secrets waiting to be discovered. Tom's heart started to beat faster. What could be inside? Would he find something amazing? Let's find out about Tom's adventure in the secret garden. We will read his story in chapters. Each chapter will be short and easy to understand. We will learn new words and see how Tom faces new challenges and exciting discoveries. Are you ready? Let's discover. Chapter 1. The Special Place. Tom was a young boy with curious eyes and an even more curious mind. He lived in a small house with his parents and his sister, Lucy. Behind their house was a garden. But this was not just any garden. This was a special place. The garden had tall trees that seemed to touch the sky. It had flowers of all colors: red, yellow, blue, and purple. There was a small pond in the middle where tiny fish swam happily. Birds sang sweet songs from the branches above. For Tom and Lucy, the garden was the most wonderful place in the world. Every day after school, Tom would run to the garden. He would sit under the big oak tree and read his favorite books. Sometimes he would watch the butterflies dance around the flowers. Other times, he would just lie on the grass and look at the clouds moving slowly across the blue sky. "Mom says dinner is ready," Lucy called one evening as she walked into the garden. She was Tom's younger sister, with bright red hair and a smile that could make anyone happy. "Just 5 more minutes," Tom replied, not looking up from his book. Lucy sat down next to him. "What are you reading?" Tom showed her the cover of his book. "It's about a magical garden where animals can talk and trees can walk." Lucy's eyes grew wide. "Do you think our garden could be magical too?" Tom laughed. "It's just a story, Lucy. Gardens can't be magical in real life." As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Tom and Lucy walked back to their house. Little did they know that their garden was about to reveal its own special kind of magic. Chapter 2. The Talking Bird. The next morning was Saturday. Tom woke up early, excited to spend the whole day in the garden. He quickly ate his breakfast, toast with jam and a glass of orange juice. "Where are you going in such a hurry?" his mother asked with a smile. "To the garden," Tom replied, already at the door. The morning air was fresh and cool. Dewdrops sparkled on the grass like tiny diamonds. Tom walked to his favorite spot under the oak tree. As he sat down, he noticed something unusual. There was a bird on one of the branches. It was not like any bird Tom had seen before. It had bright green feathers and a yellow beak. The bird looked at Tom and said, "Good morning." Tom jumped to his feet, shocked. "Did you just talk?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Of course I did," the bird replied. "My name is Pip. What's yours?" Tom couldn't believe his ears. A talking bird, just like in his book. "I'm Tom," he said finally. "How can you talk?" Birds don't talk in real life. Pip fluttered down and landed on Tom's shoulder. This is not just any garden, Tom. This is a special garden where magical things happen. Tom remembered what Lucy had asked the day before. Could their garden really be magical? What kind of magical things? Tom asked, his curiosity growing. Well, Pip said, the flowers can sing, the trees can dance, and I can talk. But only special people can see the magic. People with kind hearts and big imaginations. Tom's heart raced with excitement. He had to tell Lucy about this. Chapter 3. Lucy's Disbelief. Lucy! Lucy! Tom shouted as he ran into the house. You won't believe what happened. Lucy was in the kitchen, helping their mother wash dishes. What happened? She asked, drying her hands on a towel. The garden, Tom said, out of breath. It's magical, just like in my book. There's a talking bird named Pip. Lucy looked at Tom with a raised eyebrow. Very funny, Tom. You're just making things up. No, I'm not, Tom insisted. Come and see for yourself. Lucy sighed, but followed Tom to the garden. When they got to the oak tree, Pip was nowhere to be seen. See? There's no talking bird, Lucy said, crossing her arms. Just then, Pip flew down from a nearby tree. Hello again, Tom, he said. Tom looked at Lucy expectantly. See? Pip can talk, but Lucy just looked confused. It's just a normal bird, Tom. It's not saying anything. Tom was puzzled. Pip had just spoken, clear as day. Why couldn't Lucy hear him? Only those who truly believe in magic can hear me, Pip explained, as if reading Tom's thoughts. Tom turned to Lucy. Pip says only people who believe in magic can hear him. Lucy rolled her eyes. You're still playing games, Tom. There's no such thing as magic. As Lucy walked away, Tom felt sad. He wanted his sister to experience the magic too. Don't worry, Pip said. She'll believe when she's ready. Chapter 4. The Singing Flowers. After lunch, Tom returned to the garden. This time, he brought his notebook. He wanted to write down all the magical things he discovered. Pip, are you here? Tom called out. The green bird appeared from behind a bush. I'm here, Tom. What would you like to know about the garden today? Tom thought for a moment. You said the flowers can sing. Can I hear them? Pip nodded. Follow me. Tom followed Pip to a patch of beautiful roses. They were red, pink, and white, and they smelled wonderful. Hello, roses, Pip said. This is my friend, Tom. Can you sing for him? To Tom's amazement, the roses began to sway gently, even though there was no wind. And then they started to sing. It was the most beautiful sound Tom had ever heard. The song was soft and sweet, like a lullaby. Tom sat on the grass, listening with his eyes closed. He felt peaceful and happy. When the song ended, he opened his eyes and said, That was amazing. Thank you, roses. The roses bowed their heads as if saying, You're welcome. Tom wrote in his notebook, Day 1 in the magical garden. Met Pip, the talking bird. Heard the roses sing. Lucy doesn't believe me yet. As Tom was writing, he heard footsteps. It was his father, coming to do some gardening. Hi, Dad, Tom said, quickly closing his notebook. Hello, son, his father replied with a warm smile. Enjoying the garden? Tom nodded enthusiastically. It's the best place in the world. His father looked around, appreciating the beauty of the garden. You know, when I was your age, I used to think this garden was magical. Tom's eyes widened. Really? His father chuckled. Yes, I had quite an imagination. I even had a friend, a talking squirrel named Sam. Tom couldn't believe what he was hearing. Had his father experienced the magic too? Dad, Tom said hesitantly, what if I told you that I met a talking bird named Pip? His father smiled knowingly. Then I'd say you have a wonderful imagination, just like I did. He patted Tom's head and went to work on his plants. Tom looked at Pip, who was sitting on a nearby branch. Did my dad really meet a talking squirrel? Pip nodded. Yes, but as people grow older, they often forget about magic. They become too busy with grown-up things. Tom made a promise to himself right then. He would never forget about the magic, no matter how old he got. Chapter 5. The Dancing Trees. The next day was Sunday. It was a bright, sunny day with clear blue skies. Tom woke up early again, eager to explore more of the garden's magic. After a quick breakfast, he rushed to the garden. Pip was waiting for him under the oak tree. Good morning, Tom, Pip greeted. Ready for another magical discovery? Tom nodded excitedly. Can we see the dancing trees today? Of course, Pip replied. But we need to wait until noon. That's when the sun is directly above us, and the trees feel the most energetic. Tom looked at his watch. It was only 9 a.m. What can we do until then? Pip thought for a moment. How about I introduce you to some of my friends? Tom's face lit up. You have friends in the garden? Many, Pip said. Follow me. Pip led Tom to the pond. There, swimming happily, were the tiny fish Tom had often watched. Hello, friends, Pip called out. The fish swam to the edge of the pond. One of them, a golden fish slightly bigger than the others, spoke up. Hello, Pip. Who's your friend? This is Tom, Pip introduced. Tom, meet Goldie and her family. Tom waved at the fish, feeling a bit silly but also amazed. Nice to meet you, Goldie. Nice to meet you too, Tom, Goldie replied. Do you like her pond? I love it, Tom said. It's very beautiful. Goldie seemed pleased. Thank you. We try to keep it clean and tidy. Tom spent the next few hours talking to Goldie and her family. He learned that they had lived in the pond for many generations. They told him stories about the garden from long ago, when Tom's grandparents had first planted the trees and flowers. Before Tom knew it, it was almost noon. Pip reminded him about the dancing trees. We should go now, Pip said. The trees will start dancing soon. Tom said goodbye to Goldie and her family and followed Pip to the center of the garden, where there was a small clearing surrounded by tall trees. As the clock struck 12, Tom felt a gentle breeze. And then, something incredible happened. The trees began to sway rhythmically, their branches moving up and down, left and right. It was as if they were dancing to silent music. This is amazing, Tom exclaimed. The trees danced to celebrate the sun, Pip explained. It's their way of saying thank you for the light and warmth. Tom watched in as the dance continued. The trees moved gracefully, their leaves rustling softly. It was a beautiful sight. As Tom was watching, he heard a voice behind him. What are you looking at, Tom? It was Lucy. She had come to the garden to call Tom for lunch. The trees are dancing, Lucy, Tom said, pointing. Can't you see? Lucy looked at the trees, which were now swaying gently in the breeze. They're just moving because of the wind, Tom. Tom sighed. He wished Lucy could see the magic too. Come on, Lucy said, taking Tom's hand. Mom made your favorite, spaghetti and meatballs. Tom followed Lucy back to the house, but his mind was still in the garden with the dancing trees. Chapter 6. The Problem in the Garden. For the next few days, Tom spent all his free time in the garden. He talked with Pip, listened to the singing flowers, and watched the dancing trees. He also met more of Pip's friends, a family of rabbits who lived under a bush, a wise old owl who slept in the hollow of a tree, and even a friendly caterpillar who was soon to become a butterfly. But on Friday, when Tom came to the garden after school, something was wrong. The flowers weren't as bright as usual. The trees seemed sad, and Pip, usually cheerful and talkative, was quiet and worried. "What's wrong, Pip?" Tom asked, concerned. Pip sighed. "The garden is sick, Tom." Tom looked around. Now that Pip mentioned it, he could see that the grass was turning brown in some places, and some of the flowers were wilting. "Why is the garden sick?" Tom asked. "I don't know," Pip replied. "But it started a few days ago. First, the pond water became cloudy. Then, the flowers began to lose their color. And now, the trees are getting weaker. If this continues, the magic will disappear." Tom felt a pang of fear. He couldn't bear the thought of losing the magic of the garden. "We need to find out what's causing this," Tom said with determination. "And we need to fix it." Pip nodded. "But how?" Tom thought for a moment. "Let's ask your friends. Maybe someone has noticed something unusual." They started with Goldie and her family in the pond. The water was indeed cloudy, and the fish looked tired. "Goldie, have you noticed anything strange lately?" Tom asked. Goldie swam slowly to the edge of the pond. "Yes, Tom. The water tastes different. It's making us feel weak." "When did this start?" Tom asked. "About a week ago," Goldie replied. "At first, it was just a slight change, but it's getting worse every day." Next, Tom and Pip visited the rabbits. They too had noticed something unusual. "The grass doesn't taste right," said the father rabbit, "and some of our babies have gotten sick after eating it." The owl had a similar story. "The air feels heavy," he said. "It's hard to fly. And the insects I eat don't seem as healthy as before." By the end of the day, Tom had spoken to many of the garden's inhabitants. They all agreed that something was wrong, but none of them knew what was causing it. Tom went home feeling worried. He needed to find a solution, and fast. Chapter 7. The Discovery. The next morning, Tom woke up early. He had a plan. He would inspect every inch of the garden to find the source of the problem. He started at the pond and worked his way outward. He checked the soil, the plants, the trees. He looked for anything unusual or out of place. After several hours of searching, Tom was about to give up when he noticed something strange near the fence that separated their garden from the neighbor's yard. There was a small hole in the ground, and coming from it was a trickle of water. But this water looked different. It was slightly green and had a strange smell. Tom called for Pip, who had been helping him search in another part of the garden. "Pip, I found something," Tom said, pointing to the hole in the strange water. Pip looked at it and frowned. "This doesn't look good, Tom. This water might be what's making the garden sick." Tom nodded. "But where is it coming from?" He followed the trickle of water to the fence. On the other side was their neighbor, Mr. Johnson's yard. Mr. Johnson was known for his perfect lawn. It was always green, even in the driest summers. Tom had a realization. "I think I know what's happening. Mr. Johnson must be using some kind of chemical to keep his lawn green. And that chemical is leaking into our garden through this hole." Pip looked distressed. Chemicals are bad for gardens, especially magical ones. We need to stop this before it's too late. Tom knew what he had to do. He needed to talk to Mr. Johnson. I'll be back, Pip, Tom said. I'm going to try to fix this. Tom went home and told his parents about the strange water coming from Mr. Johnson's yard. He didn't mention the magic, of course, but he explained that he thought the water might be harmful to their garden. His father frowned. That's concerning, Tom. Let's go talk to Mr. Johnson. Together, Tom and his father went to Mr. Johnson's house and knocked on the door. Mr. Johnson was a tall man with gray hair and glasses. He seemed surprised to see them. "Hello, John, Tom," he greeted. "What brings you here?" Tom's father explained what Tom had found, the strange water leaking from Mr. Johnson's yard into their garden. Mr. Johnson looked shocked. "I had no idea," he said. "I've been using a new fertilizer for my lawn. The salesman said it was safe, but if it's affecting your garden, then I need to stop using it immediately." Tom felt relieved. Mr. Johnson seemed genuinely concerned and willing to help. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson," Tom said. "Our garden means a lot to us." Mr. Johnson smiled at Tom. "I understand, son. I'll switch back to organic fertilizer, and I'll help you clean up any damage that's been done." Tom couldn't believe how easy it had been. He had expected Mr. Johnson to be defensive or dismissive, but he had been understanding and kind. As they walked back home, Tom's father put a hand on Tom's shoulder. "Good job spotting that, Tom. You might have saved our garden." Tom smiled, thinking of Pip and all his magical friends. "I hope so, Dad. I really hope so." Chapter 8. The Garden's Recovery. Over the next few days, Tom, his father, and Mr. Johnson worked together to fix the problem. They blocked the hole where the chemical water was coming through. They added fresh soil to the affected areas of the garden. Mr. Johnson even brought over some organic plant food to help the garden recover. Lucy, curious about all the activity, started helping too. She watered the plants and helped pull out weeds. "Why do you care so much about this garden, Tom?" Lucy asked one afternoon as they were working. Tom hesitated. Should he tell her about the magic? Would she believe him now? "Because it's special," Tom said finally. "It's more than just trees and flowers. It's like it has a life of its own." Lucy looked around at the garden. For a moment, Tom thought he saw a glimmer of understanding in her eyes. "I think I know what you mean," Lucy said softly. "Sometimes, when I'm alone here, I feel like someone is watching me. Not in a scary way, but like a friend." Tom smiled. Maybe Lucy was starting to believe in the magic after all. Meanwhile, the garden was slowly recovering. The pond water was becoming clear again. The flowers were regaining their color. The trees were standing taller. And Pip, who had been quiet and worried, was starting to chirp happily again. "The garden is healing, Tom," Pip said one day. "Thanks to you." Tom felt proud. He had saved the garden and all his magical friends. "The magic will be stronger now," Pip continued. "And maybe, just maybe, Lucy will be able to see it too." Tom looked over at Lucy, who was carefully planting some new flowers with their mother. He hoped Pip was right. Chapter 9. Lucy's Belief. A week after they had fixed the problem, Tom was in the garden with Pip. They were sitting under the oak tree, talking about how the garden had changed. "The roses are singing again," Tom noted. "And the trees danced yesterday at noon." Pip nodded. "Yes, the magic is back. And it's even stronger than before." Just then, Lucy came into the garden. She was carrying a book, the same book Tom had been reading about the magical garden where animals could talk and trees could walk. "Hi, Tom," Lucy said, sitting down next to him. "I borrowed your book. It's really good." Tom smiled. "I'm glad you like it." Lucy looked up at the tree. "Is this where you meet Pip?" she asked. Tom was surprised. "You remember about Pip?" Lucy nodded. "The talking bird. You said he lives in this tree." Tom glanced at Pip, who was sitting on a branch above them. Pip winked at Tom. "Yes," Tom said. "Pip lives here. He's actually right above us now." Lucy looked up. For a moment, her eyes seemed to focus on Pip. Then, to Tom's amazement, she said, "Hello, Pip." Pip chirped happily. "Hello, Lucy. I've been waiting to meet you." Lucy's eyes widened. "I heard him. Tom, I heard him speak." Tom laughed with joy. "I told you the garden was magical." Lucy looked around with new eyes. "What else is magical here?" Tom spent the rest of the afternoon showing Lucy all the magical wonders of the garden, the singing flowers, the fish who could talk, the rabbits, the owl, and at noon, the dancing trees. Lucy was enchanted by everything. She laughed, she asked questions. She wanted to know everything about the garden and its magic. As the sun began to set, Lucy turned to Tom. "Thank you for sharing this with me, Tom. I'm sorry I didn't believe you before." Tom smiled. "It's okay. Pip says you can only see the magic when you're ready to believe in it." Lucy nodded thoughtfully. "I think that's true. I read your book, and it made me wonder, what if there really is magic in our garden? And then, when I came here today, I was ready to see it." Tom felt happiest than he had in a long time. Not only had he saved the garden, but now he could share its magic with his sister. "We should tell Mom and Dad," Lucy suggested. Tom shook his head. "I don't think they're ready to believe yet. Dad used to see the magic when he was young, but he forgot about it as he grew up." Lucy looked sad. "That's a pity. The magic is so wonderful." "Maybe one day," Tom said. "But for now, it's our special secret." As they walked back to the house, hand in hand, Tom and Lucy made a promise to each other. They would always believe in the magic of the garden, no matter how old they got. And they would protect it, always. Chapter 10. The Garden's Secret. Summer turned into fall, and fall into winter. The garden changed with the seasons. The trees lost their leaves. The flowers went asleep. The pond froze over. But the magic remained. Tom and Lucy visited the garden every day, even in the cold. They wore warm coats, gloves, and scarves. They built snowmen and made snow angels. And they talked with their magical friends, who had adapted to the winter in their own ways. Pip had grown a thicker coat of feathers. The fish in the pond swam deeper where the water was warmer. The rabbits had dug a cozy burrow. The owl had found a sheltered spot in his tree. One snowy afternoon, as Tom and Lucy were playing in the garden, Lucy asked a question. "Pip, why is our garden magical when others aren't?" Pip, who was perched on a snow-covered branch, thought for a moment. "All gardens have a touch of magic, Lucy, but some have more than others. Your garden is special because it has been loved for many generations." Tom looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" Pip flew down to a spot near the oak tree. "Dig here," he said. Tom and Lucy looked at each other, then began to dig through the snow and the soil beneath. It was hard work, but they were curious. After digging for a while, Lucy's hand hit something hard. "I found something," she exclaimed. They dug more carefully now and soon uncovered a small metal box. It was old and rusty, but the lock was still intact. "What is it?" Tom asked. "Open it and see," Pip said. Tom tried to open the box, but the lock was stuck. "It's locked," he said. Pip nodded. "The key is hanging on a nail inside the garden shed." Lucy ran to the shed and found the key, just as Pip had said. She brought it back, and Tom used it to unlock the box. Inside was a small notebook, very old and yellowed with age. The handwriting inside was faded but still readable. "It's a diary," Tom said, carefully turning the pages. The diary belonged to their great-grandmother, who had first planted the garden. In it, she wrote about her love for plants and nature. She described how she talked to the birds and listened to the flowers. She even mentioned a special green bird named Pip, who had become her friend. On the last page of the diary was a note. "To whoever finds this diary, know that this garden is special. It is filled with love and magic. Take care of it, talk to it, listen to it, and it will share its magic with you." Tom and Lucy looked at each other, then at Pip. "So our great-grandmother knew about the magic too?" Lucy asked. Pip nodded. "Yes, she was the first to see the magic. She loved this garden so much that she brought the magic to life. And that magic has lived on, growing stronger with each person who loves the garden." Tom thought about his father, who had seen the magic as a child but had forgotten it as he grew up. "Is that why Dad could see the magic when he was young?" Tom asked. "Yes," Pip replied. "He had a big imagination and an open heart, just like you two. But as he grew older, he became busier and stopped believing." Lucy looked sad. "Will we forget too when we grow up?" Pip shook his head. "Not if you choose to remember. Not if you keep your hearts open to the magic." Tom and Lucy made another promise that day. They would never forget about the magic of the garden. They would keep it alive, just as their great-grandmother had done. And maybe, one day, they would share it with their own children. Chapter 11. Spring returns. Winter eventually gave way to spring. The snow melted. The trees began to grow new leaves. The flowers peeked out from the soil. The pond thawed, and the fish swam happily again. The garden burst into life, more beautiful and magical than ever before. Tom and Lucy spent even more time in the garden now. They had brought their great-grandmother's diary to the garden and often read it together under the oak tree. They learned more about her and her love for the garden. They also learned more about the magic, how to listen for it, how to see it, how to feel it. One sunny spring day, as Tom and Lucy were reading the diary, their mother came into the garden. "What are you two always doing out here?" she asked with a smile. Tom and Lucy exchanged a look. Should they tell her about the magic? "We're reading, Mom," Tom said, showing her the diary. It belonged to great-grandma. Their mother's eyes widened. "Where did you find this?" Tom pointed to the spot under the oak tree. "We dug it up during winter." Their mother sat down next to them and took the diary. She turned the pages carefully, reading bits here and there. "I remember my grandmother talking about this garden," she said softly. "She used to say it was magical. I thought she was just telling stories." Tom and Lucy looked at each other again. Maybe their mother was ready to believe. "It is magical, Mom," Lucy said. "We can show you." Their mother smiled indulgently. "Show me what, sweetheart?" Lucy pointed to a nearby rose bush. "The roses can sing, and the trees dance at noon, and there's a bird named Pip who can talk. He's right there, on that branch. Their mother looked where Lucy was pointing. Pip was indeed sitting on the branch, looking at them. "That's a very pretty bird," their mother said. "But I don't hear it talking." Tom felt a bit disappointed. His mother wasn't ready to see the magic yet. But then something surprising happened. The roses began to sing. It was a soft, sweet melody that filled the air. Their mother's eyes widened. "Do you hear that?" she asked. Tom and Lucy nodded excitedly. "It sounds like singing," their mother said, looking around. "But where is it coming from?" "The roses, Mom," Tom said. "They're singing for you." Their mother looked at the roses, then back at Tom and Lucy. This is magic," Lucy finished for her. Their mother sat in silence for a moment, listening to the roses' song. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. "Yes," she said, "it is magic." From that day on, their mother joined Tom and Lucy in the garden whenever she could. She began to see the magic too, not all at once, but gradually as she opened her heart to it. She heard Pip speak. She saw the trees dance. She talked with the fish in the pond. And she read their great-grandmother's diary from cover to cover, understanding now what her grandmother had meant when she talked about the garden's magic. One evening, as they were heading back to the house after a day in the garden, their mother said, "We should show your father this magic. I think he's forgotten how to see it." Tom, Lucy, and their mother decided to help their father remember the magic. They would remind him of the talking squirrel he had known as a child. They would show him their great-grandmother's diary. They would bring him to the garden at noon to see the dancing trees. They hoped that, with their help, their father would remember how to see the magic again. Chapter 12. The Whole Family. The next Saturday, Tom, Lucy, and their mother put their plan into action. After breakfast, they invited their father to come to the garden with them. "I have some gardening to do anyway," their father said, grabbing his gloves and tools. They all went to the garden together. It was a beautiful morning. The sun was shining. The birds were singing. Normal birds, not magical ones yet. And the flowers were blooming. Their mother showed their father the diary. "Look what the children found," she said. Their father took the diary and looked at it. This is my grandmother's diary," he said, surprised. "Where did you find it?" Tom pointed to the spot under the oak tree. "We dug it up in winter. Pip told us where to look." Their father raised an eyebrow. "Pip, the talking bird," Lucy explained. "Like Sam, the talking squirrel you knew when you were little." Their father looked startled. "How do you know about Sam?" "You told me, Dad," Tom said. "Remember? When you said you used to think the garden was magical when you were my age." Their father was quiet for a moment, lost in memories. "Sam," he said softly, "I haven't thought about him in years." Just then, a squirrel appeared on a nearby branch. It was brown with a bushy tail and bright, intelligent eyes. "Hello, John," the squirrel said. "It's been a long time." Their father's eyes widened. "Sam," he whispered. The squirrel nodded. "You've grown up, but I'd recognize you anywhere." Tears filled their father's eyes. I thought I had imagined you." Sam hopped down to a lower branch. "No, I was real. I am real. The garden's magic is real. You just forgot how to see it." Their father looked around the garden, seeing it with new eyes. "I remember now," he said. "The singing flowers, the dancing trees, the pond with fish that could talk. It was all real." Tom, Lucy, and their mother watched in amazement as their father reconnected with the magic of the garden. He talked with Sam, catching up on the years that had passed. He listened to the roses sing. He waited until noon to see the trees dance, and he met Pip, who had been Tom and Lucy's guide through the magic of the garden. "Thank you for helping my children see the magic," their father said to Pip. Pip bowed his head. "They were ready to see it, just as you were when you were young, and just as you are again now." That evening, as they sat around the dinner table, their father said, "I can't believe I forgot about the magic. It was such an important part of my childhood." Their mother squeezed his hand. "But you've remembered now, and we can all enjoy the magic together." Tom and Lucy beamed with happiness. Their whole family could now share in the magic of the garden. "We should write our own diary," Lucy suggested, "like Great-Grandma did. We can write about the magic we've seen, so we never forget." Everyone thought this was a wonderful idea. Their father found a blank notebook, and they all took turns writing in it. They wrote about Pip and Sam and the other magical creatures in the garden. They wrote about the singing flowers and the dancing trees. They wrote about how they had discovered the magic, forgotten it, and found it again. Their father wrote a special note at the beginning of the diary: "To our children and our children's children. This garden is special. It is filled with love and magic. Take care of it, talk to it, listen to it, and it will share its magic with you. Never stop believing." Chapter 13, Sharing the Magic. As spring turned into summer, the garden flourished. The magic grew stronger, nurtured by the love of the whole family. Tom, Lucy, and their parents spent hours in the garden every day. They tended to the plants, talked with the animals, and enjoyed the magical displays. They wrote in their diary regularly, documenting everything they saw and experienced. One day, Lucy had an idea. "We should share the magic with others," she said. Tom looked doubtful. "But not everyone will be able to see it. Remember, you couldn't see it at first." Lucy nodded. "True, but we can still share the garden. And maybe, if people spend enough time here, they'll start to see the magic too." Their parents agreed. They decided to open their garden to the neighborhood. They would host a garden party and invite everyone. They spent the next week preparing. They cleaned the pathways, trimmed the bushes, and made sure everything looked perfect. They baked cookies and made lemonade. They set up tables and chairs under the trees. On the day of the party, the garden looked more beautiful than ever. The flowers were at their brightest, the trees were full of green leaves, and the pond sparkled in the sunlight. The neighbors started arriving in the afternoon. They were all surprised and delighted by the garden. "I had no idea this was back here," said Mrs. Wilson, who lived across the street. "It's like a little paradise," commented Mr. Peterson, their next-door neighbor. Tom, Lucy, and their parents gave tours of the garden, showing everyone the different plants and features. They didn't mention the magic, of course, but they hoped that some of the visitors might sense it. As the party went on, Tom noticed something interesting. Some of the children seemed to be looking at certain spots with curiosity, as if they could see something the adults couldn't. A little girl named Emma kept glancing up at the oak tree where Pip was sitting. A boy named Max spent a long time by the pond, as if listening to the fish talk. Chapter 13, Sharing the Magic. Tom nudged Lucy and pointed this out to her. "I think some of them can see the magic," he whispered. Lucy watched Emma, who was now reaching her hand up toward the branch where Pip sat. "You're right," she whispered back. "Should we talk to them?" Tom nodded, and they approached Emma first. "Hi, Emma," Lucy said with a friendly smile. "Do you like her garden?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "It's beautiful, and there's a pretty green bird in that tree. I think he winked at me." Tom and Lucy exchanged excited glances. "That's Pip," Tom said. "He's our friend." Emma's eyes widened. "You know him? Can he talk?" "Yes," Lucy said softly. "But only special people can hear him. People with big imaginations and kind hearts." Emma looked back up at Pip. "I thought I heard him say hello to me, but my mom didn't hear anything." "That's because she doesn't see the magic yet," Tom explained. "But you do." Emma smiled widely. "I knew it. I knew this garden was magical." They then went to talk to Max, who was still by the pond. He was crouched down, his head tilted as if listening. "The fish are telling you stories, aren't they?" Lucy asked. Max jumped slightly, then looked relieved. "You can hear them too? I thought I was imagining things." "You're not," Tom assured him. "This is a magical garden. The fish talk, the flowers sing, and the trees dance at noon." Max's face lit up. "I want to see the trees dance. Come back at noon tomorrow," Lucy invited. "We'll watch together." By the end of the party, Tom and Lucy had identified 5 children who could see or sense the magic of the garden. They invited all of them to come back the next day for a special garden club meeting. Their parents, noticing what was happening, supported the idea. "The magic wants to be shared," their mother said. "Just like your great-grandmother shared it with your father, and you shared it with us." The next day, Emma, Max, and the other 3 children, Lily, Zach, and Omar, came to the garden. Tom, Lucy, and their parents welcomed them warmly. "Before we begin," their father said, "we want to show you something special." He led them to the oak tree and showed them the spot where the diary had been buried. "This garden has been magical for generations," he explained. "And now, you're part of its story too." The children were thrilled. They spent the day exploring the garden with Tom and Lucy, meeting all the magical creatures, listening to the flowers sing, and watching the trees dance at noon. "This is the best day ever," Lily exclaimed, her eyes full of wonder. "Can we come back tomorrow?" Zach asked eagerly. Tom looked at his parents, who nodded with smiles on their faces. "Of course," Lucy said. "The garden is always open to friends who believe in magic." From that day on, the garden club met regularly. The children's parents, seeing how happy and engaged their kids were, supported the gatherings. Some of them even started helping with the garden work, though they couldn't see the magic themselves, at least not yet. Chapter 14. The garden grows. As summer went on, the garden club grew. The first 5 children told their friends about the wonderful garden, and some of those friends turned out to be able to see the magic too. By August, there were 12 children who regularly visited the garden to experience its wonders. Tom and Lucy's parents had to set up some rules to make sure the garden wasn't overwhelmed. The club could meet 3 times a week. Everyone had to help take care of the garden. And most importantly, the magic was a special secret, only to be shared with people who could understand and appreciate it. The garden thrived with all the attention and care. The flowers bloomed more vibrantly. The trees grew taller and stronger. The pond became clearer, with more fish swimming in its waters. Even the magical creatures seemed happier and more energetic. Pip, who had become something of a leader among the magical creatures, was especially pleased. "This is how the garden is meant to be," he told Tom one day. "Full of life, full of love, full of children who believe in magic." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "But what happens when we grow up? Will we forget the magic like Dad did?" Pip flew to Tom's shoulder. "That depends on you, Tom. If you choose to remember, if you keep your heart open, the magic will always be there for you." Tom made another promise to himself. He would never forget, never close his heart to the magic, no matter how old he got or how busy his life became. One evening, as the garden club was wrapping up for the day, Tom's father called everyone together. "I have a special announcement," he said. "The town is having a garden competition next month. They're looking for the most beautiful and unique garden in the community. I think we should enter." The children responded with cheers and excited chatter. But Tom's mother added, "We'll need to be careful. We can't tell the judges about the magic. We'll let the garden speak for itself." Everyone agreed. They would prepare the garden for the competition without revealing its secret. For the next few weeks, the garden club worked harder than ever. They weeded and pruned. They planted new flowers. They cleaned the pond. They made sure every part of the garden looked its absolute best. The magical creatures helped too, in their own ways. The birds brought seeds from distant places. The fish kept the pond water clean. The bees pollinated the flowers with extra care. Even the worms worked overtime, aerating the soil to help the plants grow stronger. When the day of the competition arrived, the garden was a sight to behold. Flowers of every color bloomed in perfectly arranged patterns. The trees stood tall and proud, their leaves a vibrant green. The pond sparkled like a jewel, with water so clear you could see all the way to the bottom. The judges arrived in the afternoon. They were three serious-looking people with clipboards and measuring tools. They walked through the garden slowly, taking notes and photographs. Tom, Lucy, and the rest of the garden club watched anxiously from the house, not wanting to influence the judges in any way. After an hour, the judges left without saying much. Tom's parents thanked them for coming and saw them out. "What do you think?" Lucy asked her father when he came back. He shrugged. "They seemed impressed, but it's hard to tell. They'll announce the winners next week at the town fair." The wait was nerve-wracking. Everyone from the garden club kept visiting to check if there was any news. Pip and the other magical creatures seemed anxious too. They wanted their special garden to get the recognition it deserved. Finally, the day of the town fair arrived. Tom, Lucy, their parents, and as many of the garden club members as could come went together to hear the results of the competition. The mayor stood on a small stage in the town square, ready to announce the winners. There were categories for best vegetables, most creative design, rarest plants, and finally, most beautiful garden. And the winner of the most beautiful garden category is... The mayor paused dramatically. The Thompson family garden. Tom and Lucy jumped up and down with excitement. Their parents hugged each other. The garden club members cheered loudly. Tom's father went up to accept the certificate and the small trophy. "Thank you," he said into the microphone. "This garden has been in our family for generations. It's a special place, full of magic." He winked at Tom and Lucy. "We've recently started sharing it with a wonderful group of children, our garden club. This award belongs to all of them too." The crowd applauded, and the garden club members beamed with pride. As they were walking home with their trophy, Lucy said, "I wish Pip and the others could have been there. They were there in spirit," their mother said. "And I'm sure they're celebrating in their own way right now." Sure enough, when they got back to the garden, they found it buzzing with activity. The magical creatures were having a party of their own. The flowers were singing more beautifully than ever. The trees were swaying rhythmically, even though it wasn't noon. The fish were jumping out of the pond, doing flips in the air. "Congratulations," Pip called out as they entered the garden. "We knew you would win." The family placed the trophy on a small table they had set up under the oak tree. It wasn't much to look at, just a simple cup with "Most Beautiful Garden" engraved on it. But to them, it represented something much more valuable: acknowledgement of the special place they had created and shared. Chapter 15. The Magic Lives On. Years passed. The children of the garden club grew older. Some moved away, off to college or jobs in distant cities. New children joined, introduced to the garden by those who remained. Tom and Lucy grew up too. Tom went to college to study botany, inspired by his experiences in the magical garden. Lucy became an art teacher, often using the garden as a subject for her paintings. But no matter where life took them, they always came back to the garden. They never forgot the magic, never closed their hearts to it. And whenever they returned, Pip and the other magical creatures welcomed them as old friends. Their parents grew older but remained devoted caretakers of the garden. Their father retired from his job and spent most of his days tending to the plants. Their mother started a blog about gardening, sharing tips and stories, though never revealing the magic, with people from around the world. The garden diary grew thicker with entries from various family members and trusted friends. It became a cherished family heirloom, passed down from generation to generation. One summer day, nearly 15 years after Tom had first met Pip, he brought someone special to the garden, his fiancée, Sarah. They had met at college and fallen in love over their shared passion for plants and nature. "Sarah, there's something I want to show you," Tom said as they entered the garden. "Something I've never shown anyone else before." Sarah looked around appreciatively. "Your family's garden is already amazing, Tom. What more could there be?" Tom smiled and led her to the oak tree. "Sit with me," he said, patting the ground next to him. As they sat down, Tom called out softly, "Pip, are you there? I have someone I'd like you to meet." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a flash of green feathers, and Pip landed on a nearby branch. "Hello, Tom," Pip said. "It's been a while," Sarah gasped. "Did that bird just talk?" Tom finished for her. "Yes, he did. This is Pip. He's been my friend since I was a child." Sarah looked from Tom to Pip and back again. "But birds can't talk. Not ordinary birds," Tom agreed. "But Pip is special, and this garden is special. It's magical, Sarah." He spent the next hour showing Sarah all the wonders of the garden, the singing flowers, the dancing trees, the talking animals. To his delight, she could see and hear everything, her eyes growing wider with each new discovery. "This is incredible," she whispered. "I never knew such magic existed." "Not many people do," Tom said. "Only those with open hearts and minds can see it. That's why I wanted to show you. Because I love you, and I wanted to share this special part of my life with you." Sarah hugged him tightly. "Thank you for trusting me with this. It's the most wonderful gift anyone has ever given me." As they were leaving the garden, hand in hand, Tom noticed something remarkable. New flowers were blooming along the path they had walked, flowers that hadn't been there before, in colors he had never seen in the garden. Pip flew down to them. "The garden approves of your love," he explained. "It's creating new magic for you both." Tom and Sarah married the following spring in the garden, of course. It was a small ceremony, attended only by family and close friends who knew and respected the garden's secret. Lucy, who had returned from her teaching job in another city for the wedding, stood beside her brother as his best woman. Their parents, gray-haired now, but still vibrant and active, beamed with pride. After the ceremony, as the small group celebrated under the dancing trees, Lucy approached Tom. "Do you remember when we were kids and we made a promise never to forget the magic?" she asked. Tom nodded. "Of course. It's a promise I've kept all these years." Lucy smiled. "Me too. And I've been thinking, the garden has given us so much joy and wonder. We should find a way to give back, to make sure the magic lives on for generations to come." Tom considered this. "What did you have in mind?" "A foundation," Lucy said, "to protect and preserve the garden. We could set aside money to maintain it, even after, well, after Mom and Dad are gone, and if we ever move away." Tom thought it was a brilliant idea. He discussed it with Sarah, who enthusiastically agreed. Together with Lucy and their parents, they established the Thompson Garden Foundation, dedicated to preserving the garden and its special qualities for future generations. They were careful in the legal documents never to mention magic explicitly, but they included provisions about maintaining the garden's unique character and ensuring it remained accessible to children with imagination and appreciation for nature. Years turned into decades. Tom and Sarah had children of their own, a boy named Michael and a girl named Emma. Lucy married a fellow teacher named David, and they had a daughter, Lily. All the children grew up knowing and loving the magical garden. Tom and Lucy's parents eventually passed away, peaceful in the knowledge that their beloved garden would be cared for. The garden itself seemed to mourn them, with flowers drooping and trees swaying sadly for weeks afterward. But life and magic continued. The garden club, which had been a constant through the years with ever-changing membership, celebrated its 30th anniversary with a special gathering. Former members, now adults with children of their own, returned to visit. Some could still see the magic. Others had lost the ability but remembered it fondly. Pip, who had been a constant presence all these years, presided over the celebration from his favorite branch in the oak tree. "The garden has never been more alive with magic," he told Tom, who was now in his 40s with streaks of gray in his hair. "Thanks to you and your family, it will continue to thrive for generations to come." Tom looked around at the garden, at the children playing, at his own kids showing their cousins the dancing trees, at Sarah tending to some new flowers with Lucy. He felt a profound sense of contentment. "No, Pip," he said softly. "Thank you for showing me the magic all those years ago, for helping me to never forget. The garden has been the greatest gift of my life." Pip chirped happily. "That's the real magic, Tom. Not the talking animals or the singing flowers or the dancing trees. The real magic is the love and wonder that grow in this garden. The connections between people, between generations. That's a magic that never dies." Tom knew Pip was right. The garden would continue to change and grow. Children would discover its magic, grow up, and introduce their own children to it. The cycle would continue, endless and beautiful, as the sun began to set on the celebration, casting golden light through the trees. Tom thought back to that first day when he had met Pip and discovered the garden's secret. He had been just a curious boy with a book about a magical garden. Now he understood that the real magic had been inside him all along. The ability to see wonder in the world, to believe in possibilities beyond the ordinary, to keep his heart open to the magic of life. And as long as there were children like that, as long as there were gardens tended with love, the magic would live on.